What's up, everybody? So a few years ago, there was this rumor floating around that there was going to be a Making a Murderer alternative, and at the time it was titled Convicting a Murderer. It was going to look at the case from a different perspective. At the time, I read that it was going to look at it from the other side, more from the police side of things. Now, for all of you that are familiar with my videos, you know my stance on Making a Murderer. I'm currently reading Illusion of Justice, which is Jerome Buting's book, who was Stephen Avery's lawyer during the first season of Making a Murderer. And I've also read Ken Kratz's book as well. Now, it does sound like to me that Convicting a Murderer, even by title alone without even knowing anything else about it, does look like it is going to push the state's narrative. Now, I've read Ken Kratz's book. I'm almost done Jerry Buting's book, and I'm still of firm belief that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are innocent. His book is brilliant. So I decided to look up some information on the Convicting a Murderer documentary, because I have not seen any news on it for a long time. And the most recent story I can find is from over a year ago, October 5th, 2020. There does not appear, now if I'm wrong, please let me know, drop a link, and it is from postcrescent.com, and it is linked in the description as well. It is an article written by Andy Thompson. It states, Convicting a Murderer, which has been billed as a more even-handed version of the Stephen Avery case than Making a Murderer, has been pushed back to 2021. Now, as of me making this, it's November 2021, and there's literally nothing else out there that I can find that's showing it is going to be released this year. So if it ever does come out, it doesn't look like it's going to be 2021. It looks like at the earliest right now, unless something changes in the next month and a bit, it will be 2022. It states that the documentary filmmaker and the director and executive producer of the project told USA Today Network Wisconsin that a release date has yet to be set for the 10-episode docuseries. The article also states Convicting a Murderer was scheduled to hit airwaves in 2019, and I think that would have been around the time that I heard about it, or that we all heard about it, but it was pushed back to 2020 to allow final editing and final touches. But it says push back to 2020. It's now the end of 2021, and we still have no Convicting a Murderer documentary. It states that the docuseries will now be known as Convicting, has pledged to take a broader look at the Teresa Halbach killing than Making a Murderer. It will place more of an emphasis on the perspective of law enforcement. It does look like, by that quote alone, it will be pushing the state's narrative and Ken Kratz's narrative of the events that transpired, of what they believe happened. What are you willing to bet? Now, this is just completely my opinion. There's no factual basis to this whatsoever, just something I thought about while reading this, because I've seen it done in other situations, that the state or somebody involved with the case from the state's perspective, or somebody that views the case from the state's perspective, is behind this, or somebody from the state themselves wants to push this narrative to get a alternative to Making a Murderer out there, to try and get people to believe the other side of things, like Ken Kratz did in his book. Ken Kratz actually states in his book that his goal was to get people to get more people to believe his side of things, but he's well aware that that did not work. I don't believe this documentary will succeed in doing that either, because they're just going to show the same things that people like James Lenker, Andrew Colburn, or Ken Kratz, or Thomas Fassbender, or Mike Weirgart. They're just going to continue to push their side of things. There's more quotes from the documentary filmmaker. He states, "We'll let the audience decide. This process is just taking a little longer than we thought. It's alive and we're working on it. It's going to be next year before it airs." Next year at that point in time was 2020. One reason for the delay, he said, is that film festivals are all virtual now. He previously said that the release date for the series will be up to the licensee or the distributor. He said he's confident that a buyer will come forward. I don't think it will be Netflix. I mean, they are firmly on the Making a Murderer side of things. So, I don't know, there is a bunch of other streaming services out there, Amazon, Hulu, and I'm sure a ton of people will want to watch this, but I don't think it's going to have the effect that they're looking for. There's just so much bad investigative work, bad police work. If you're going to continue to push the state's narrative, I don't think it's going to work out the way they think it's going to work out. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've got some sort of crazy news that no one has been able to find, that 2 seasons of Making a Murderer hasn't put out there, that nobody from the state has since been able to put out there. Kathleen Zellner has done a tremendous job at blowing everything the state has put out there out of the water. The responses she has gotten from the state over the last little while, over the last few motions that they filed, have been ridiculous. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, go look up the state's responses to Kathleen Zellner. They're absolutely ridiculous. They absolutely make no sense, and they are laughable. And I don't think this documentary is going to do anything to change the way millions and millions of people around the world feel about Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, and what happened to them all those years ago, and that they still continue to sit in prison for a crime they didn't commit. But let me know what you think. What have you heard on Convicting a Murderer, which I guess is now just called Convicting? It'll be interesting to see what comes from this, if it ever does air, who buys it. Interesting to see. Let me know your thoughts. Hope you're having a good day. I'll see you again soon.